Hey there, Heather Ho, there's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to a brand new episode of the 40 Facts About Me. I talked about 10 facts about my life as an icebreaker yesterday, and now today, Monday, April the 7th, which is Jordan Kappa's 24th birthday. Happy birthday, Jordan. I hope you see this video. And no, I'm not doing any facts about you. You're not boring. It's just the fact that, you know, what can I say about you? Nevertheless, this video will be about my work experiences. I talked about my icebreaker stuff, and now I'll be working on this video, pun intended, of course, and tell you about my work stuff and everything. Of course, I'll make sure that I don't bore you, and I don't go too much into detail that I can get myself in trouble. So first and foremost, let's talk about my first job, and that was Zellers. My first official job. I worked a few other things, but the fact of the matter is that Zellers was big for me. It was my first big job. It was this major Canadian store chain. Basically, it was what Zellers it was to Canada, what Walmart is to the States, and basically, a department store. So I got hired on for a 2 week trial in November 2006, and I passed that with flying colors. I remember talking in my second interview to the interviewer and basically giving some answer saying that, got to help customers with experience and all that. I was with Job Track, a agency that helps me with finding job, and my job coach said, "We never discussed this." When I gave my answer and all that, basically that I came up with this all by myself. So anyhow, I got into Zellers, and then the big thing was that I stayed at Zellers for 6 plus years, the longest job I've had because Canadian Tire's not yet at 6 years. So I worked at Zellers. I worked pretty much in the food and the health and beauty, just the front face everything, take stock and put stock in the food department, do returns, do carts, do a few, a little bit of everything. So that's what I did. I did my seller's job. And then practically, in April 2012, they said that they sold off the leases and logically sellers would be gone. And by 2013, it was gone, January 2013. So of course, I will give a link in the video, like in the description of the YouTube video to my seller's goodbye and all that. So, how I felt. So anyhow, I lost my seller's job. And then the next thing was what to do now. But thankfully, in the severance package, sellers also said I had an interview with Target. Now, Target came into the Laurentian Power Center, replacing sellers only because the leases could have went to Walmart, but the lease couldn't go to Walmart because Walmart was close by. And also, Home Depot couldn't move into the place because some of the leases went to Home Depot, but they couldn't because Rona was next door. So practically, had to be a Target. So I went into Target. I got the automatic job interview, which I passed, and then got to work on setting up the store for opening. It was a new experience because the store I was working for hadn't even opened till July 2015, and then all of a sudden 2013. What am I thinking? And then all of a sudden everything worked out in a sense. So I can't even say 18 months because, well, in 20 months at the store, it was a fun experience. They made it more about, a team experience with Target and you calling people like store associate or team member and all that. So anyhow, it was a good experience. Wearing khakis was weird and to me. I was like, oh, but nevertheless, it was a fun experience and all at Target. So of course, I will link to the Target goodbye and my speech for 20 months of Target, which was fun. I took advantage of them a little too much sometimes. I'll be honest with you, as well as sellers. I got to admit my faults, but yeah, it was a fun place to work. Well, of course, also in 2013 was another experience for me, and that was work being at Open Space. It was an agents. It was a because the job agency um, in Netown Kitchener said that there's this interesting group that deals with people with disabilities, and they come by Monday nights and play games and all that. And I'm like, cool, I'll try that out. So I did, and I was at Open Space for 9 years, which was pretty impressive and all that. Got to do open mic nights, be like the MC or perform songs, butchering them. But hey, what do you do? We played a lot of Uno, a lot of other games too. Like in July, we would go to the park and play and all that. It was fun meeting all of the people with different disabilities like Down syndrome, cystic fibrosis, or no, not cystic sorry, cerebral palsy, yeah, cystic fibrosis, just general autism, and other conditions that seem to be far worse than I feel. But yeah, it was a great experience. Of course, open space got bit by COVID and all that, and for 2 years we did COVID online. No, I mean not COVID online, open space online. You get my drift. And I left in 2022 saying that it just lost its luster on me, and I said, well, I might as well leave. So I left after 9 years. So in my work experiences, I unfortunately had 4 years off between jobs and all that. I worked for my buddy Bill's tender tool startup project and all that, and got paid in a little bit. But the fact of the matter was that that wasn't really a real job, according to some people. Unfortunately, my luck had been struck in 2018. I had 8 different job interviews, including one with Staples that I had to be part of a 3-part interview process, and I managed to make it to part 3, but I couldn't finish the freaking job. So obviously that sunk. So unfortunately for me, it didn't work out. I tried Canadian Tire by my home base at the Sunrise Center 3 times. I got an interview once, but failed. I got an interview with the Fairway Road Canadian Tire and failed. I got Value Village wouldn't even want me. So something looked bleak and all that. Like I tried to look like to the grocery stores, right where I worked. Sobeys gave me a few interviews. Home Depot gave me some interviews, but I couldn't finish the job. Microplay didn't even want to hire me, or EB Games, or Zellers didn't want to hire me. Now, a lot of it comes down to a couple of variables. Number one is my stupid phone actually had some problems connecting because it was a landline and it was a telephone and it would drop calls. I would learn later that half the people probably would have wanted to give me an interview, but they couldn't reach me because my phone just wouldn't let them connect. So practically, I ended up not getting calls when I needed to, and that bit me in the butt. I didn't even get a cell phone till after my dad died. But the fact of the matter was that and also the fact that I was too much in a comfort zone and all that I could have branched out to other places and all that. Which leads me to where I did find work, and that place is Sheridan Nurseries. Of course, I was hesitant for many years, saying, why would I want to work with plants and all that? I don't have a green thumb. I could get pricked by plants and all that. What good would me working with plants do for work down the road? That was my mentality. Of course, stupid mentality. Jeff, what the hell are you thinking? The simple fact is that, I do my stuff, and practically what ends up happening is that, Sheridan gave me an opportunity. Agilic, the job agency in Fairway Road, said this name about Sheridan. I'm like, I was hesitant, but then I'm like, my family's like, get a job. So I decided, what's the worst that can happen? So I go in for the job interview on the Monday, which was actually the funny thing to do. I hate to use sports references, but it was the day after Kawhi Leonard's famous shot bounced off the rim multiple times into the bucket, eliminating the Sixers. And I can't forget Kevin Harlan's call. Game, series, Toronto has won! Just like that. So yeah, that was after Quiet Shot, the day after. And then they gave me the interview and says, we can give you a couple of 5-hour shifts from 10 to 3 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I pondered it over and I said, well, 10 is better than 0. So I'm like, sure, go for it. So of course I take, of course, a week off and then I come back, which was, of course, game 4 of the Raptors Bucks conference finals, because the Raptors just came back on the Sunday to win in overtime against the Bucks to make it 2-1 Bucks in the series. Little did I know that my success at Sheridan would also be a success with the Raptors. Of course, there's higher powers also involved, as Bill says, but you know, true as it may seem, there are some people that just don't want to talk about that stuff, unfortunately. Nevertheless, so I went to Sheridan, learned some new skills. I basically was cleaning things up, but I would stock stuff and make sure stuff was in a good place and all that. I did break a few things, but nothing too serious. And, everything worked out great. I filled the bird seed, I filled the cactus bags, the fertilizers, everything. I managed to do that and keep track of everything in a little black book. Not what do you think? Regardless of that, Sheridan was also when I had one of my worst moments in my life, was when I got sick so much and threw up a while, and I didn't even know what my problem was. Soon it was practically due to my neck and all that. And, I've been on neck medication ever since. But yeah, that was not fun. But nevertheless, I got to Sheridan, but unfortunately, it was a seasonal job, a 3-month job, so they let me go after 3 months. Little did they know that I actually did have a plan coming out of Sheridan eventually. So by July 2019, a few months after I got the Sheridan job, I kind of figured that Sheridan might have only want to keep me for the summer. So I said, well, I got to find something else just in case something doesn't work. Or as an alternative, I could be working 2 jobs, because people do work 2 jobs. And I do work at Sheridan only 2 days out of 7, so could fill the time. So Shoppers Drug Mart was willing to give me a chance, but not the one close to where I live at Sunrise, the one at Forest Glen Plaza, which at the time actually was being redone because the buses would not be at Forest Glen Plaza anymore. They would, because of the whole LRT project in Kitchener. The bus day, all the buses would be going somewhere else. So like, yeah, it was weird. Nevertheless, Shoppers Drug Mart at Forest Glen Plaza gave me an opportunity. They gave me more hours. Although it would be funny that I one week I would work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, and the other week I would work Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So it was literally every other day from 7:30 to 10:30. So of course I'm not really much of a morning person, but I had to be. So I would make a 20-minute trek by foot to Shoppers Drug Mart and do my job, just filling the food departments and all that, cleaning and doing a few other things too. It seemed okay, but then January went through in 2020, and my boss Ben said that basically we have to let you go because we need to cut jobs. And then of course I go to him, I go, well, why didn't you tell me this before and say, hey, you have 2 weeks left? I would still bust my hump, because they could have just said, hey, we're dumping you off, you have 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll take it. So they did give me severance. I did have to give back the Shepherd's Drug Mart shirt and all that. I was upset. And when I returned the shirt, I told the boss, I said, you could have just easily told me you were going to cut me like a couple weeks before you cut me. And then I would have been like, okay, fine. Then that would give me more time to, find something else. So, of course, that day, January 15th, 2020, was gloomy and all that. I was told to leave work early. So I did. And then I decided to go back to Sheridan saying, hey, is there a job offer for me? Because they did say if Shoppers Drug Mart didn't work out, I might go back. They told me that. And then they said, well, come back in March. And I'm like, okay, fine. So then I went back to Agilic and all that. And the rest kind of was history, because Agilic actually had a job offer for me from a Canadian Tire in Waterloo. I'm like, Waterloo, not in Kitchener where I live? But they said, well, there would be a job fair at the agency for this Canadian Tire in Waterloo, 674 Waterloo West on the boardwalk. I'm like, okay. And then I go to myself, I said, I could take this and I had to take this or else I'm going to regret it due to the fact that, you know, then I just have to get a bus pass. I'll have to go downtown, get a bus pass, and pay like $80 per month and all that. So I had to go get a bus and get out of my comfort zone. I said, well, I got myself too much into a comfort zone and it failed me. I better take this offer. So I take the chance. I go to the job fair. I practice my interview skills and all that stuff. And then this guy, Chris Morrison, comes in and interviews me, gives me a few questions, and I answered them honestly. I can't remember which ones. But then he said, great, then welcome aboard. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I just wanted to see if you were ready, willing, and able to work. And I think you can. So we'll give you a call when we're ready for you and welcome aboard. I was stunned because I was so looking forward to a massive job interview thing. But then, did that. And then I can't forget that afternoon calling my mom in excitement and telling her and my dad, saying that, I'm going to be a Canadian Tire. I'm going to be a Canadian Tire. I did it. That, I'm going back to work. I'm not going to be out of work for too long. And then they said, well, March the 3rd would be my first day. And I'm like, yippee ki yay. I'll do it. So of course I get a bus pass and then set myself up and take the bus and make sure that everything works out. I would have worked earlier, but then there was a stupid bus strike, the first in regional history, and I couldn't get to that store to figure out what my bus route would be. But of course, it came at a price. It's fun when it lasted. Unfortunately, though, February 29th, 2020 rocked my world when my mom phoned me and said my dad suddenly died at my house, well, at the farm. I was stunned. And I had to go to work, start work at Canadian Tire on the Tuesday. I wasn't sure what to do. I was like, should I tell them my dad died? I need another week or go through with it. But my dad always said this, and of course, I will repeat this in a couple days. My dad said, go on with your life, do what you have to do, don't worry about me and all that. The fact of the matter is that, it just stunned me that my dad died. And then a few days later, I would go to work. I know I could have easily just said, screw it, I need another week. But I'm like, I better get to work when I can because you never know what can happen. So on the Tuesday, I go for my first shift. I can't work the next day because it was my dad's visitation. And then the Thursday was the funeral, which I wasn't scheduled to work. Thank goodness for that. And then I came back on the Friday. Dumb, I know I should not have done that. But, my mindset at the time was just keep working and all that. Dude, this is like 5 years beforehand. Obviously, if this happens again, I'm gonna take my time, take some time off. But I started off as a member of the field crew, getting carts and then putting stuff in the homes and all that. Of course, things would be a lot different because of stupid COVID. Like COVID ruined a lot of retail and all that. So Canadian Tire adjusted. We did what we call the online thing. People would order online, and then in a safe spot, we would give them their orders and all that. That they didn't have to leave their car. We still do that nowadays. So I was part of field crew until October when one guy by the name of Sam decided to punch a trailer inside of a trailer when he was working on the truck and broke his hand. They needed someone to replace him. So they needed someone young, full of vigor, knowledgeable about the products, good to work with, and reliable. Well, not really reliable. They couldn't find one person with that, so guess who got the position? This guy, as I am pointing to myself. So they told me to do receiving, and I thought it was going to be temporary for a couple of months. But then it lasted till January, and then they said, "Sure, let's do it." I asked my first warehouse supervisor, what happens, and he said, "Well, you're a good hard worker. You want to do the work and all that. You just worry about yourself too much." Fair enough. So I've been receiving ever since. But that's not all I do. I don't just unload the trucks when they come in or clean the area or put cardboard in the compactor and all that. I go out to do carts. I do carry outs for customers. I clean the front of the store when I have to be. What else do I do? I think I got it all. I said carts, carry outs, garbage, compactor, receiving truck, and all that. I don't think there's anything else I do. Nevertheless, that's been my trajectory for 5 years. Oh, yeah. And of course, soil compound, which might happen this summer for me again for the third straight summer, or is it fourth? No, it's going to be the fourth because I got some kind of certificate in 2022. So that would be my fourth straight year doing the soil compound. I basically am outside the store in an area, um, putting soil in people's trucks and all that, and making sure everything's clean and all that. So yeah, I got to do that this year, possibly. But yeah, that's where my trajectory is, and I'm still at Canadian Tire now. It's been 5 years and a month, so that's only the second job I've had for more than 5 years, which the first one was Zellers. So fingers crossed. Which leads us to the fact number 8 in this video was the work, the networking at work. I know it doesn't sound right, but it's what I say. So anyway, going to work, I kind of tried to get along with my coworkers and all that, but my super shyness and all that kind of ruined me. I know that people say you can't be that shy if you're going to work every day, even though that you're kind of quiet. I know, but I know I could be better and all that. Everyone knows about my shyness and me trying to keep it to myself and all that. But the fact of the matter is, I do have work BFFs or good networking. I can't forget, and many of them I'm Facebook friends with. Friends with Lisa Camp, no, Daddy Danko. I know I'm butchering names. I apologize. Um, Chris Morrison, Mark Jones, Brandy Jones. A whole host of people. But of course, there's two that you know strike in my mind. One is Araz. I cannot say her last name. It's Tchieggan. Ugh, forget it. No disrespect, Araz, but I cannot say your last name and I cannot spell your last name. If there's a Canadian Tire spelling bee, no one's ever going to get that right except for you and your husband. But nevertheless, Araz has been very good. She's been a very good influence on a lot of people, even me to a point. Like, she checks in on me every so often. She's now the housewares manager after our housewares manager left for Brantford. And of course, she was the promo manager. She was all that, but she's one busy chick. And I don't know why I say chick. I'm sorry, but I don't want to repeat myself. I have to do the spot all over again. But the fact of the matter is that she's a pretty good person and I like her a lot. Not that way, people, please. And of course, let's not forget about my work BFF, the guy who worked in receiving with me at the same time and then grew to be the warehouse supervisor when our first warehouse supervisor decided to head to the Victoria Street store, which is now on Ottawa North, and spending all the a couple of years with him as warehouse supervisor, and then he in 2024, late 2024, got to be the seasonal manager, and then now he's moving to Kingston, which will you know make me upset and all that. But you know, Aaron's a fun guy to be with. Aaron DeMarin is a fun guy to be with. We give each other a lot of shtick and all that. And it's a good work relationship. I give him a hard time for stuff, but one thing I know, every time that we work the same shift and all of that, well, at the same time, Aaron will wait till I I at least expect it, and then throw this my way. Oh, Jeffrey! Jeffrey! Oh, Jeffrey, Jeffrey, Jeff. I'm trying to mimic him, but it's annoying AF, especially when you say my full first name. Like I like to be named as Jeff. Jeffrey is really what my family should be calling me, but it's annoying. But what can I say? Guy freaking knows me. All right, but the fact of the matter is, I don't just work on like Canadian Tire stuff. I have kind of a YouTube work experience and all that. Of course, facts 9 and 10 are about my YouTube career and all that. I kind of got back into YouTube by 2011. Didn't really post much till 2015 when I decided to go back into it. So I posted like PS2, PS3 videos that I would record and all that. They're kind of primitive and all that. I would do top 10 videos using my webcam, my primitive webcam. And then all of a sudden, I just didn't know what to do. Like I could do PS2 games till the day I die, and I would do that, but that PS2 died on me. The fact of the matter is that you know I have a good solid YouTube career, and then all of a sudden, by 2022, I figured a new direction for my stuff. I watched this YouTuber by the name of Al Red Sox fan play some PC sports like baseball, basketball, football, hockey, even golf and soccer. And I'm like intrigued. I'm like, interesting. And I'm thinking to myself, those games look cool. Like for baseball, out of the park. And it's got historical teams. So I'm like, if I could play with the 1985 Toronto Blue Jays, I could. And then they had the all-time teams, like the all-time Blue Jays legends, like George Bell playing on the same team as Carlos Delgado. And for the Yankees, like Joe DiMaggio would play with Babe Ruth and Derek Jeter. You get the picture. So I got interested. And I'm like, screw that. I'm like, hell yeah, that's cool. Basketball, I wasn't much into, but then PCB Play Basketball had like seasons and all that. It says you could play as the 1993 Chicago Bulls, you could play as the 2019 Toronto Raptors and all that. So by seasons. And I'm like, I buy seasons. Of course, one of the big pains is that you can't have a pre 3-point team against a 3-point team. As in, the NBA put the 3-point rule in effect in 1979. So like there'd be seasons that didn't take the 3-point line in effect, and you can't have a matchup with that unless you do what if sports. Regardless of that, football I was intrigued. I was a baseball mogul and football mogul guy. But then football, they showed me second and 10 football. And it has all the teams. When you buy it first, it has all the NFL seasons and all that. That version. Like you could even play seasons and add and do tournaments with like the 1994 Green Bay Packers against the 1980 Pittsburgh Steelers, for example. It was like intriguing and all that. And it even had the fight songs and the graphics and all that. That was kind of cool within the game. It was like, wow, that's cool. So yeah, so play the crap out of that. Hockey was hard. I thought franchise hockey manager, but then Al showed a game called Stone Cold Hockey, and you could buy season sets and all that. Like you could buy a season set like 1983, 84. You have all the teams from that season from start to finish, and you also have like the 1990-91 Pittsburgh Penguins, for example. So you could have tournaments and all that to play the crap out of that. And then, you know, tennis, even tennis, like Al showed me time travel tennis, and I'm intrigued. And then you get all these great players, like you can get Pete Sampras, Boris Becker, Roy Emerson, Rod Laver, even Reg and Lori Doherty in one game. Well, you have to buy the card sets. And then you get the female legends like Steffi Graf, Monica Seles, even Canadian Carling Bassett. It was like cool and all that. And I played the crap out of that every week. And then golf is ASG golf. Well, that was the Ron Juckett project. But man, you get this different decades. You get golfers of the 80s, legends of the 80s, the 90s, to 2000s, and all that. Like you get Tiger Wood. You could have a tournament with Tiger Woods, Tom Watson, and Bobby Jones in the same field. That is like amazing. And then, boxing even too. I was always a title belt boxing guy because, you could have pound for pound, like division versus division people. But Legends of Boxing have also taught me a lot of things. So yeah, so I focus more on PC gaming. Of course, soccer is classic soccer for the World Cup stuff, and Dice United for like seasons. You can get like the 1982 English First Division, or and then the Premier League from '93. It would be amazing to watch. Like yeah, I'm babbling. I'm a babbler, babbler. But nevertheless, I turned my attention to the PC gaming community. I've gained followings. I now have 445 YouTube subscribers when I struggled to get to 200. Now I jumped up a little bit, but bit by bit, little by little. I'm not that much of a prick, am I? Nevertheless, those are 10 facts about me, about my work career. I know the YouTube career is not kind of work. I don't get paid for it, but hey, I do it to drown my sorrows, if you will. So anyway, tomorrow I will talk about the cutter experiences, like what I experienced in life. And then of course Wednesday is the 10 most pressing facts about me. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.